Thank you. Sit down, please. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's extraordinary full council meeting. A particular welcome to the public joining us in the gallery and those watching us remotely via YouTube. For those of us in the building, the usual safety precautions apply. We're not expecting any alarms or evacuations, but should an alarm go off, please leave the chamber through the nearest exit, and we congregate outside on College Green near the cathedral. Item 2 on our agenda is apologies for absence. I've received apologies from councillors Chris Davis, Jeff Gollop, John Geeta, Fabian Breckles and Tim Rippington. Do we have any other apologies from the floor? Yes.
Councillor Lorraine Francis.
Thank you, Lorraine Francis. And
Councillor Tom Renard.
Tom Renard, thank you very much. Anybody else? No, good. And can I ask, please, whether any members have any interest to declare which are relevant to the one item on today's agenda? None. Excellent. Okay, in which case we move on to public forum. And at this point, I just want to apologise to those members of the public who may have been slightly concerned that when we first published the agenda for this meeting, public forum wasn't listed. That was simply a mix-up with the rules for this meeting and the rules for the annual council which follow it. I take complete responsibility for that and apologise to anyone that was concerned by it. And thank you to Councillor Kent, who spotted that very quickly and alerted us to it so that we could put it right. We have received public forum. We'll start with the statements. We've received 2 public statements for this meeting, which should be displayed on the screen. There we go. Both of whom have indicated that they are here and wish to speak. So I'll invite each person in turn to speak to their statement. And I'll just remind you that the statements for public forum are limited to 1 minute. All the statements have been distributed and read by councillors in advance of the meeting. So I would advise that you use the minute to summarise and pull out key points rather than try and rush through reading the entire statement in the limited time. So, first of all, Mary Page, please. Mary, welcome. You have 1 minute for your statement.
I'd like to start by thanking the people of Bristol. People kept saying that they didn't care about democracy and they wouldn't come out to vote, but they did. And we came out in greater numbers than the first mayoral referendum 10 years ago. And this referendum gave us a chance to reflect about and review what the mayoral role had done for the city, whether it had delivered positive or negative results. People decided with a significant majority that the mayoral system wasn't working for them. We will never know what particular reasons motivated each and every one of those people to vote for change and to choose the committee system. So it's up to us, all of those people who are already engaged in the system, to make sure that everyone in the city has a chance to be involved in the new system if they choose to be.
Thank you very much, Mary, and perfect timing as well. Thank you for that. Our second public statement is from Emma Harvey. Emma, welcome. You have 1 minute for your statement.
Thank you. I just guess to reiterate Mary's points, I'm interested as a resident and a worker to find out what the mechanisms are going to be for participation in the process, not just in the committee forum itself. I just would really urge the councillors who are going to be leading this working group not to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just replace one imperfect system with another. There's been some great mechanisms set up by the One City board alongside the youth assemblies, citizen assembly, all of those things. And so I just really urge the councillors involved to take the good points out of the One City plan and carry those forward to ensure public participation. There's spaces that quite historically keep people like me out and people like Marvin out of these spaces. And the fact that Marvin's in this space should be commended by everybody in this space. So I think we should be looking at that One City plan and saying, how can we take forward the points to ensure that everybody has an opportunity to take part and shape this city that we know and love.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. We'll move then to public questions. which again should be shown on the screen. We've received 6 questions from 3 different people, one of whom is here, as I understand it, to ask their question. So when I call you out, please do ask your question. The Mayor will give you a verbal response, and then for each question you then have the opportunity to ask a second follow-up question if you would like to do so. So, Mary, you have questions number 3 and 4, so if you could put your first question, please, to the Mayor.
So you can see the question that I've put there, that, you know, given Marvin's position, that he was actively campaigning and sort of saying he didn't think the committee system would work. I'd love to know what you will do and what you will commit to. Because, you know, realistically, I don't expect you to commit to the Rainbow Cabinet, but you talk about choices, and you have a choice to make the system work for better, to ensure that more people across the city are engaged and involved in the committee system. Like Emma, I will stand with you about tackling all the racism and everything that you have faced in coming forward to take your place and to take your seat at the table. And we have to widen participation and increase diversity in this council chamber and make sure
Mary,
that everyone
can you just
feels
sum up
welcome.
the question that you're asking the Mayor to answer, please?
What will Marvin commit to doing as Mayor of the city for the remaining 2 years to ensure that we transition to a workable committee system which includes all of the city?
Thank you. Mayor Rees.
So in 2016, people were asked who they wanted to run the city at the time, and I was elected. 2021, they were asked who they wanted to run the city again. I was re-elected. The referendum question was, what did people want to happen after 2024? On that turnout, they chose a committee system. I've been elected to continue to deliver on the commitments I made and the practices we put in place. Specifically, how the committee that's designing the committee choose to operate over the next 2 years is really a matter for that committee.
Thank you. Mary, did you want to ask a follow-up to that question before we move on to your second one?
I mean, you and I pretty much disagree about everything. It's not just politics. It's. I don't think there's much we agree on personally, but we do both see the benefit and opportunity for people being involved in politics, and we have both worked to increase diversity and representation by people across the city. And so I really hope that you can do more than just continue and sit out the rest of your term, that you will do more to actively work with us.
Mary, I'm sorry, but if you want to ask a question, please feel free, but we don't have time for long speeches.
I would, you know, one thing we can agree on is we can both work with Emma, and I would love to do some outreach work with you, with Emma. Will you consider it?
We set up, I think, what is recognised as one of the most inclusive approaches to city leadership the city's ever experienced, through the One City approach, drawing in people who have historically been excluded from shaping the future of Bristol. In our cabinet, in terms of race and class and gender, again, most inclusive visions of political leadership the city's ever experienced. We've got a record on it, and we'll continue to deliver that.
Thank you. Mary, you also have question number 4. Would you like to ask your second question?
The same thing goes for the members of the cabinet. You have a choice about whether or not to include councillors of the opposition parties in the running of the administration and to open up documents, the structures, the ways of working. If you choose not to do that, you can set up the committee system to fail, as can Marvin. It is so much better if you are willing
Mary,
to work with others.
can we have a question, please, not a speech?
So what I would like to know is, what will you personally commit to doing to ensure that the people in this room who were elected to represent the people can do to set up an effective, working, collaborative committee system?
Really, the design of the committee system is down to the committee that's been established to set up the committee system. Right? That's in terms of what vision you had for the committee system, how you wanted it to work, what models you wanted to engage with. That really is down to those of you who were advocating for committee system. I did not know what you were actually putting forward to the public. So it really is up to you to say what that committee system is, as you committed to doing over the coming months, and explain that, and then we will actually know what we are pointing at. But I can't answer the question, and I can't build the model that you were advocating to the City of Bristol. That it really is down to you and your co-leaders of your campaign.
Okay, you got a final follow-up, a concise question, if you would, please, Mary.
But you can contribute. You have a valid voice, and it is important that your perspective, others' perspectives, people of the city's perspective, those people who aren't in this room, because the majority of people, those 56,000 people, aren't here sat in the room.
Mary, please,
So-
can you ask a question, please, not a long speech?
Well, in which case, if Marvin won't help the committee set up, he's got two choices. He can instigate the Rainbow Cabinet, so will you do that? Or will you do what David Cameron did when he lost the referendum and resign?
Our priorities in the city, what are we doing right now? We got a cost of living crisis, we're on a pandemic recovery, decarbonising the economy, implementing the ecological strategy, tackling the housing crisis. One of the best things we can do for this city is deliver on the issues that actually matter to people right here and right now, those crises that are in their lives, and not necessarily get tied up in the internal machinations. What we will do around city governance is to continue to invest in that network of city partnerships that we've built through the One City office, the Housing Committee, the Homes Committee, the Children's, the Homes Board, the Children's Board, the Health and Wellbeing Board, so that actually the partnerships that the city needs to be able to flourish are built and in place for whatever comes after 2024. And I would just suggest that the design of the committee system that you bring about is one that is well suited to actually continue with those relationships.
Thank you. So that concludes the questions from those people who are in attendance. The remaining questions will get a written response. And that concludes public forum. So we move on to agenda item 4 on today's meeting, which is the governance referendum outcome. The report before us is on the screens, and it recommends that firstly, Council notes the outcome of the referendum on how Bristol City Council is run. Secondly, that it resolves to cease to operate a directly elected mayor model of governance and start to operate a committee model of governance with effect from the 5th of May 2024. And thirdly, establishes a cross-party working group to develop the committee model of governance, which will report back to full council before the end of 2022. I move that report, and I call on Deputy Lord Mayor Councillor Andrew Varney to second it.
I rise the second report, reserving my remarks.
Thank you very much. Then we move to the debate, and I call Councillor Steve Pearce to speak on behalf of the Labour Group. Councillor Pearce, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And contrary to earlier protestations on my part at an earlier meeting, it appears that this will now be the last time that I speak before you. It's been a great year. So, the people have spoken, as they very often do, and they were very clear. Despite a much accelerated pace of action and decision making under the mayoral system, we need even more change, faster change, more radical solutions, even more and still braver decisions, not fewer and slower. This is the challenge to committees. Despite that much accelerated pace, the city still faces a climate emergency, an ecological emergency, a housing crisis, inadequate public transport, poor air quality, congestion on our streets, both on main routes and in our neighbourhoods. And many in this chamber argue over just what an underground means and whether we need one. We argue over the name. Despite being a leading city in terms of recycling and waste, our recycling rates are still stubbornly below 50%. Despite that more rapid pace of delivery in recent times, we now have a tremendous opportunity. Elected members now face the challenge of reshaping the way that they work in readiness for May of 2024 and a new cohort. This is not an opportunity to promote navel-gazing or to prepare for backsliding in the face of the many adversities that we face. This is a call to action, to advance the good of all the people of the city, not just those in leafy or gentrified areas with sharp elbows and a vested interest in maintaining their status quo, and devil take the hindmost. I'm confident that we'll see no slackening of pace over the next 2 years under this mayor. I challenge elected members to undertake a very different way of working. Harder, faster, more challenging, many more decision-making meetings, less delegation to officers or committee chairs. I and the city will be watching and challenging colleagues in their performance in what will become known as the committee's committee. Our children will be watching how, or even whether, councillors choose to continue to deal with our problems, as we have been,
Councillor Pearce, your time is up. Can you wind up, please?
or just talk about them. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and I now call Councillor Dyer to speak on behalf of the Green Group. Councillor Dyer, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In 1973, when I was 8 years old, I remember attending the celebration of Bristol 600 years as a self-governing city county. Unfortunately, the following year, there was reform of local government, and that was abolished, and Bristol just became one of several districts within the county of Avon. After 20 years of often acrimonious back and forth between the old city and the new county, another government reform came in, and Bristol was recreated as a unitary authority under the committee model. 5 years after that, another reforming government abolished the committee model, and we moved to cabinet and leader. 10 years after that, another government reformed, and we had a referendum, and we moved to the mayor model. And 10 years after that, well, here we are. My Lord Mayor, along the benches here today, there was a wide diversity of opinion about the pros and cons of those different systems. What they do have in common, however, is despite the efforts of many people, they have failed to truly engage with the city, the wider city beyond this council chamber. We need to engage fully beyond this city chamber. Otherwise, we are in danger of becoming an echo chamber. Next year will be the 650th anniversary of that 14th century charter. That charter, when it was created, only really benefited a very small and elite few. We are now in the 21st century. We need to create a 21st century democracy that recognises the diversity of this city and the diversity of the opinions within it. Let's make that our commitment, that we will deliver a city that is worthy of the people that vote for us and is worthy of wanting to make people engage with us. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. And I now call Councillor Eddy to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Lord Mayor, last December, this council voted overwhelmingly to hold a referendum among Bristolians on whether they wished the decade-long experiment with mayoral rule to continue, whether they wished to revert to the committee model. The view of the Conservative Group and myself was clear. The mayoral system had been proven to be an abject failure. It was less accountable, wasteful of resources, and the elected mayor had become an elected dictator. At the time, I felt the council debate then was quite peculiar. Not one member of the current Labour Council cabinet stood up for mayoral government, and the ranks of former experienced cabinet members were similarly silent. Admittedly, a former cabinet member, Councillor Steve Pearce, was the notable exception to this rule, but as chairman of the Labour group, he would be, wouldn't he? The other two Labour speakers were backbenchers, only elected 7 months beforehand, so the Labour side were hardly weighted with experience of the mayoral system. Fast forward 5 months to D4 decision day on the 5th of May. Bristol loudly, as we've heard, answered the referendum question. No, the experiment had not been a success. We should go back to the more democratic committee model. The turnout was more than what I expected on the constitutional question. And the result, 59% no, resounding and totally clear. Unless this council wishes to copy the democratic credentials of someone like Vladimir Putin, which I don't believe does, surely this meeting will ratify this report, and respect the referendum result, and declare that the unloved mayoral model of government dies in Bristol in 2 years' time. Conservative councillors will play a full part in the coming working group. My colleague Councillor Jeff Gollop, whose own father, Philip, worked under the committee system, is one of our members. I, who in my 30 years here actually was involved with all three systems, will be the other members. Finally, my Lord Mayor, having commented on the elected mayor's succession, it forced me to say a few pleasant things about you, the retiring Lord Mayor. In the closing half an hour of your term as Lord Mayor, may I sincerely thank you on behalf of all members for how you have conducted yourself. You have been unfailingly impartial, very efficient, and a true credit to the Bristol we love. In my view, there can be no higher accolade than the third observation here. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Eddy. And that's one way to get away with running into a red light. And I now call Councillor Kent to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And if I promise to praise you at the end, can I also run into the red light?
We'll see.
Lord Mayor, what a great day it is today for the people of Bristol. A clear message was sent. Firstly, thank you to Claire Campion-Smith for bringing the original motion, calling for change, and Baroness Barbara Jank for pushing through that change to the legislation to allow today, and Karen Smith for working with her to ensure that change was brought about. Now let's talk about the committee system. I'm going to refer to a Twitter thread, a bit unusual, in this chamber, which I did a few days ago. I know a lot of you might have read it, but I don't think the mayor's seen it, so I thought perhaps I'd go through it. Firstly, we should set out principles on how we would like to see the process of decision-making occur, public engagement, guidance on which decisions are made by councillors, and ensure efficient collaborative decision-making. But we must also ensure we are ambitious, allow the development and delivery of big ideas and not retreat to the safe middle. We should set out some high-level objectives and principles and then develop from that. We must enshrine collaborative working, as we currently see in scrutiny, but now with the decision-making power. We must curtail the power of the party whip, something which I think we have seen in the past actually leads to bad decision-making, not good. We must not just reform the constitution of the council, but also the senior officer corps. I think that the concept of a few strategic directors does not work with the committee system. We must spread that power out and bring together a group of collaborative professionals. I think we might already actually be seeing that happening in the People Directorate. We must put public engagement at the heart of the system, be willing to give time to people to express the points to us, encourage people to engage with this decision making, let them know their view counts. Councillors should not just engage in policy decision making at the end, they need to be there at the beginning, helping form that policy to make sure we have buy-in at the end. We should restore local decision making through local area committees or possibly parish councils, or even direct decision making by councillors in their wards. Councillors making decisions within their communities is important. The edge of the city feels forgotten, and the council, and they also feel the council does to them rather than with them. We need to also bring city centre partners with us, business, voluntary sector, other public services with us. We need to, yes, to reform the one city approach, but we also need to embed that in the new structure, not throw it out, as I think a member of the public was saying to us earlier. Finally, when this new constitutional subcommittee is up and running, it is essential that its progress is met with a public health checks. What we don't want is it just reporting back to us with a final product for us to say yes or no on. And I think that should be a role of overview and scrutiny committee.
That is your time, Councillor Kent.
Well, Lord Mayor, in my last few seconds, I just want to say what a great job you've done, and I'm sure you agree. What a great job. And overview and scrutiny should be providing that health check on the committee, because I know what a great Lord Mayor you are. Anyway, thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. And finally, I'll call Councillor Hopkins to speak on behalf of the Knoll Community Party.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I endorse the comments from both the last speakers regarding your performance. I have to say that this process started a very long time ago when we've heard the people have spoken. Originally, under the legislation, the people didn't have any right to speak, to have a reversal. And basically, credit goes to Councillor Jank for actually slipping through an amendment in the House of Lords, and to everybody that sat in his council at the time who backed our petition, which actually called for the government not to reverse that in the House of Commons. And I had to go up with others to actually speak to Greg Clark, who was the Community Secretary at the time, persuade them not to actually reverse the very beneficial amendment. Yes, we need to look at what we're going to do in 2 years' time and get things worked out and work with the city and the population as much as we possibly can. We also, I think, have a duty to actually look at what's happening over the next 2 years. It's clear from the answers we've heard and statements earlier on that the Mayor has learned nothing from the referendum result, and I think that's very concerning. We obviously have limited powers during the next 2 years, but we must work with officers as much as we possibly can to try to limit damage as much as possible and do the preparation for when the committee system actually takes over. I think the two go together, because a sudden jump from everything decided by one person in secret to a committee system without preparation would not actually work very well indeed. We need to make certain that reports come in time to be looked at before they're rubber-stamped by the Mayor in Cabinet. We need to have involvement. Now, that won't be easy, but if we all work together, we can actually achieve some positive results. And the population out there will be expecting us to actually try our very best to limit some of the damage that's been done by the Mayor so far. I hope that we can all cooperate, and that will be a model for what we need to do after we've got into the committee system. Thank you. And it's still green.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Marys, would you like to respond to the debate? No, thank you very much. In which case, we'll move to the vote. The recommendations are as I read out earlier and as displayed on the screen. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Then that motion is carried. That concludes this extraordinary full council meeting. in order to allow for a little bit of rearrangement of furniture, the start of the annual council will be delayed and just by 10 minutes until 2:40, please. Thank you.